Hey everyone. So about 2 weeks ago I released a tutorial for 3ds Max demonstrating how to quickly model this fully connected nested dodecahedron object. Alright, this is a render I did of that object, the uses of which could range anywhere from a simple design-oriented prop to a real-world 3D printed ornament of sorts. Okay, it's also very useful to just practice some techniques and skills in the software. Alright, so I wanted to make this video basically showing how to translate that process to the Blender platform. Okay, I will begin by saying that I'm using Blender 2.75, and I'll have the pie menu and dynamic spacebar menu add-ons activated. They aren't necessary to follow along, but you will need to have your loop tools add-on and your extra objects add-on enabled. Okay, so let's open up an empty scene here in Blender, and we'll just begin by adding a mesh here, and we'll go to the math function regular solid, and you'll see this tetrahedron appear in the center of the scene. Okay, that's the default regular solid. Over on the left hand side here, we can change the source default over to dodecahedron. Okay, and from there we'll change the vertex truncation to 1.1 and the edge truncation to 0.6. Okay, so then you have this shape right here. Okay, we're going to drop down now into edit mode, and with everything selected, just tap the X key and select limited dissolve, and you'll see what that does is just eliminates all of the interior edges that we don't need and leaves us with the profile of the shape that we want here. Okay, now you'll notice something doesn't quite look right here with the shading, and that's because our the truncation that we did inverted the normals, so we'll have to fix that just by clicking Control on the keyboard and tapping N, and that'll invert your normals into the proper orientation. Okay, so now that we have this, we'll go to face mode, tap on the eye to go to inset, and we'll inset by individual. All right, and if you're modeling to scale, perhaps these factors will matter. I'm doing this, by arbitrary units here, so I'm just going to go with a thickness of, let's say, 0.1, and that's a little too thick, so I'll back it off. I'll go with 0.06. Okay, and even maybe less than that, 0.04. Okay, so you'll just want to create a structure that has some thickness here in between the faces. It's up to you how thick you want it to be, but you don't want these spaces in here in between these faces, these n-gons and quads, to be too thick, but yet you want it to have some kind of solid structure. So somewhere around this this area of thickness will work nicely. Alright, so from here we could go ahead and tap X and just delete the remaining faces, so you're left with the skeletal structure, and it looks like this. Now we'll tab out back to the object mode, and we'll go ahead to our modifiers and apply a solidify modifier to give it some thickness and depth. We'll change the offset to 0.0, and we'll go ahead and increase the thickness. Again, this is something that perhaps will be to your own personal preference. However, you will want to maintain a decent inner thickness here. It'll come in handy later on. So I'm going to go with something perhaps like 0.16. Yeah, so something in that range of thickness. Okay. And I'm going to just check the high quality. Alright, in the options there. Alright, and I'm just going to apply the solidify modifier. Okay. Now the next step, make sure that everything is centered here. Your orientation gizmo is right in the center still. Alright, so what we want to do now is go ahead and apply an empty, and I'm just going to use plain axes. Okay, and then we'll go back to our object and we'll apply an array modifier, and we'll give it a count of 4. Okay, and we'll change the first offset there to 0.0. Alright, and we'll use the object offset of our empty, which is right in the center of our object. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and select the empty, tap on S for scale, and hold down the control button, and you can scale it inwards to the inside to about 0.7. Okay, make sure all of the vectors are at 0.7. Alright, so then you have something like this. We'll go ahead back out to the object and apply the array, and then we'll select our empty and just delete it from the scene. We don't have a use for it now. Okay, so this is the now we have all of our concentric dodecahedrons nested inside each other. Okay, now we're going to add some bridging to connect everything together into one solid object, which later on can be 3D printed if you desire. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to go down into, let's see, select the object, go into edit mode, and we're going to connect it with bridges. All right, using the bridge tool, and we're going to connect it by these hexagonal face patterns on the object. So each one of these will be bridged together to the concentric object beneath it. Okay, so obviously on this first outermost object, we don't need this outside group of faces to be connected to anything. So we'll go inside the object, just zoom in, and we'll find the corresponding set of faces that we need on the interior portion of it. Now this could get tricky in here, obviously, as you see. Everything's jumbled together, but you know, if you get in close enough at an angle, at the proper angle, you can definitely select the faces quite easily here. So we'll just select one of those hexagonal patterns on the inside of the first one, and we'll just select another one on the second object on the outside. Alright, then we'll go ahead and turn it around until we can see the corresponding set on the inside. And whoops, let's try to select that. Could get tricky, as I said, so just make sure you're selecting the proper faces here. Okay, so we have the inside of the first one, the outside and inside of the second. Now on the third, we also want the outside and inside group of faces. And then finally on the last object, we just need this outside group. Okay, so now we have all of those selected. We can click on hold down Shift on the keyboard and click the G key to bring up Select Similar, and we'll choose Perimeter. Okay, and then over here in the parameters on the left hand side, we'll adjust the threshold to 0.0001, and then hit enter, and we'll just examine our objects here to be sure that we've captured all of the proper corresponding faces, and it hasn't actually captured anything that we don't need. Now this again could be depending on your scene scale. You may need to alter the threshold either more or less to get the proper face selections. It looks like we have all of the faces that we need and nothing more or less. So it looks like we're in good shape here. But depending on your scene scale, you may need to play around with that threshold to get all of the faces that you want selected, because we only want those faces and nothing more and nothing less. So it's very important to do that in order to proceed. Alright, so you got to examine it really good here, because even one extra polygon could disrupt the workflow. So it looks like we're in good shape here, but we'll know for sure soon. Alright, so what we're going to do here, just so that we don't lose, we're going to need these face selections again later on. So we need a way to preserve them just in case we lose them along the course of our workflow. And there's several ways you can go about doing that in Blender. One quick and easy way is just to hold down Control and tap the F key to bring up your Faces menu. And while everything is selected, just go ahead and select the Mark Freestyle Face option. And now if I deselect, you'll see that those face sets have been colored in a different shade here. Mine are green. I don't know if that depends on your given UI scheme or not, but you'll see that they will be marked in a different color, and that's how you know that that was a successful operation. And these selections are preserved, and if we want to bring them back later on in our workflow, we just select one of them, one of the marked faces, and then bring up your Select Similar by holding down Shift and tapping on G, and just choose the Freestyle Face Marks, and that will bring back the given selections that you've marked. Alright, so that's one way to preserve selection sets here in Blender. Alright, so now that we have all of these faces selected, we can go on to the next step of the process. We're going to hold down Shift and tap the H key to hide all of the unselected geometry, so that we can more easily work on our these faces that we need to bridge. Okay, so I've hit all the rest of that geometry just by holding down Shift and tapping the H. All right, so now that we have all of these, we're going to try to bridge them together. Now, this was a process that I really had a hard time with at first. In 3ds Max, it was just a couple keystrokes, and everything was bridged together. But Blender had a hard time doing that. It gave me all sorts of topological errors, and it seemed problematic. I'd almost given up at one point, but I have to thank a very adept Blender user that goes by the handle Rambo Blender. Okay, he's I've spoken with him several times over in the Shapeways design forum, and he's the one that gave me this great tip to help out with the bridging operation that we're going to do now. So I'll pass it along to you. But Rambo Blender is the one that came up with this, so I got to give him credit for that. Alright, so we're going to switch to edge mode here. And you'll notice that now we have all of these columns of hexagonal faces here. Alright, so let's just select one column to work on, and we'll go ahead and we're going to grab all of the interior edges along each one of these hexagonal face sets all the way down one column. So what I mean by that is, let's select this edge loop, this inner edge loop on the first group of faces, and then this edge loop, this inner edge loop on the second and third and fourth and so on. So we'll just keep going down the line, just like this. Alright, you might have to zoom in to get when we get down here. Alright, until we hit the final one in that column. Okay, so now that we have all of those selected, we're going to switch to vertex mode, and this is where loop tools will come in handy. So we're going to scroll down and find our loop tools parameters. Okay, we'll open them up, and the two tools that we'll need here for this operation are the circle and the bridge tool. Alright, so right next to the circle tool is a little arrow. You just click that. It will drop down some additional parameters, and you can do the same for the bridge tool. Alright, so under the bridge tool, we'll set the parameters, the segments to 3. Okay, and our fluid curves are set at 1.0. We'll change that right now to 0.0. Okay, and we'll use cubic. And under the circle parameters, just make sure your z coordinate is locked. Okay, and that's the only one you really need to change under there. Alright, so now with all of these interior vertices selected, we will hold down Shift and G to bring up Select Similar, and then select Amount of Connecting Edges. Alright, and that will select all of the corresponding vertices on each column of faces. Alright, so now we have them all selected, and the next step is kind of crucial. We'll tap the circle tool twice. Alright, so tap circle and circle again. Alright, and then implement the bridge tool. Okay, so circle, circle, then bridge. Alright, and now you can see the result here should look similar to this, if not exactly like this. Nice clean bridge work here, alright, between the faces. Alright, now examine the object at this point, because if you notice anything incorrect about the topology, that Control Z it and do the procedure again. You make sure you're tapping the circle key twice. That seems to be crucial to getting proper bridging. Tapping it once, I resulted in some crossed edges and all kinds of topological errors for some reason. So that was a crucial step to getting the proper bridging in here for some reason. Alright, it must have something to do with the algorithm of the bridge tool. So, alright, so that's our bridges here. What the next step we'll do with everything still selected, the new bridging selected, we'll just tap on Smooth Vertex twice. So that'll smooth it out and give it a little bit better edge flow. Alright, so that now that we have all that, we'll go ahead and bridge the outside edges. So you can go ahead and deselect everything and switch to your edge tool again. And you'll have to manually go around one of these hexagons and select all of the edges. Alright, so now that we have all those selected, we'll go back down to the vertex level again, and Shift G to bring up Select Similar, and once again hit Amount of Connecting Edges, and now we have all of those selected. The exterior rims of each one of these objects should now be selected. Alright, so we'll go back down to our loop tools and again implement the circle command twice. So 1, 2, and then bridge. Alright, so now we have a nice bridge. What I'll do here though, let's undo that. Okay, because what I want to do here is I want to change, under the bridge parameters, I want to change the fluid curve number to negative 1.0. Alright, and I'll show you why. Let's bridge it again. And it just provides a little bit of a curve to the bridges there. Okay, as you can see here, these are curved inward slightly, and I think that's a little bit more, in the end, it's going to be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So, alright, so now that we have all of that, we can go back up to our smooth vertex and tap that once. Okay, just to give it a little bit more even result there. Alright, so now we can safely deselect all this, and we're going to need to select all of our marked faces again. So this is jumping back into face mode. We'll just select one of the marked faces, okay, and then go to Select Similar and choose Freestyle Face Marks. and that should capture all of them once again. And we just want to delete them. So tap on the X key and then faces, and that'll eliminate those faces, and we're just left with these hollow tubes, seemingly. Alright, until we bring back our hidden geometry. Just tap on the Alt key, or actually press the Alt key and hold it while you tap on the H key, and that will unhide the previously hidden geometry there. Okay, so now what we can do here is we're going to have to unify the normals on this object, because some of these bridges on here will not be facing in the proper orientation. So go ahead and select all, and then Control N again. Hold down Control and tap the N key, and that'll unify the normals across the object here. Alright, so that's our completed nested dodecahedron with the bridges intact. This is now one solid object. Okay, so we can go back out to our object mode and apply the final step of our subdivision surface modifier, and I would give it no less than 3 subdivisions here, especially if your intent is to 3D print the object. I would even maybe perhaps go with an additional 4th iteration if you're 3D printing. 3 is okay for as long as you apply the smooth shading. That should be fine for any digital, like for a digital asset or for a render. So there's the object. Now, if you want to, you can also play around with some other modifiers here, but beware that some of them might hang because of the amount of geometry here with 3 iterations. So if you're just doing this for a digital asset, consider what it'll be used for, and maybe you could bump it down one more to 2 subdivisions and apply some other modifiers to play around with. One modifier I thought gave it an attractive look was the cast modifier. If you apply the cast with a cast type of sphere and reduce the factor to a negative amount, not so much that, but perhaps like negative 0.25, around there, it stretches out those bridged faces a little bit, and it gives it an attractive look, I think. And you can go inside it and do some kind of rendering from the interior, some kind of abstract perhaps. So there's a lot of possibilities here with this object. That's about it. I think if you're going to 3D print this, it would be wise to hollow out the interior, because this would be an expensive print as is. So in order to do that, you just apply another shell modifier on top of this and adjust the thickness, which would give you interior walls inside here. So alright, well that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was useful in some way, and perhaps helped you with the bridge tool a little bit. I know I was having trouble with it coming from the 3ds Max bridge tool to this one. So alright, thank you. I'll have more videos up very shortly, so keep your eye on my channel. Please like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.